Kaixo, arratsaldeon. Arratsaldeon guztioi eta ongi etorriak ekitaldi honetara. Guretzat oso garrantzitsua da gaur arratsaldez hemen entzutera goazena, eta espero dut hemendik aterako ditugun ondorio eta etekinak guztiontzat erabat interesgarriak izatea. Bilboko udalak Euskal Fondoaren eta Euskadiko Lankidetza eta Elkartasun Agentziaren laguntzarekin, tokiko elkartasunaren Europako egunak kanpainarekin bat egin du aurten. Platformak eta Europako batzordeak sustatutako urteko kanpaina honek garapen jasangarri globalaren alde lan egiten dute Europako hiriek eta euskaldeek beren herritarrak bai ezagutarazi, bai kontzentziatu ditzakete garapen jasangarri horren inguruan dituzten erronkei buruz. Egunero, munduko beste hiri eta eskualde batzuek helburuen tokian tokiko ezarpenean ere aurrera egiten dugu elkarrekin, nazio batuek bultzatutako 2030 agendan aurrera egiteko funtsezko elementu gisa. Nuestro objetivo es acercar a la ciudadanía bilbaína a la grave emergencia humanitaria actual en Gaza y la complicada situación en la que se encuentran los derechos humanos. Queremos volver a poner sobre la mesa, no olvidar la grave situación de esta parte del mundo que pareciera que está tan lejos y en realidad está tan cerca porque en realidad todo el mundo lo está. Y volver a recordar la necesidad de tomar acción en la situación palestina, promoviendo iniciativas de apoyo humanitario civil y político que contribuyan a una solución justa y duradera al conflicto. Y respeto, como no, a los derechos humanos y al derecho internacional humanitario. Bilbao quiere ser una ciudad internacional también por su marcado carácter solidario. A través de su iniciativa Bilbao Balio en Iría, el Ayuntamiento quiere reconocer los valores que proclama la Declaración de los Derechos Humanos. La solidaridad y la defensa de los derechos humanos deben ser pilares de la política municipal de nuestra ciudad. Creemos firmemente que una ciudad es también sus ideales y su capacidad de contribuir a un mundo más justo y solidario, y se define por los valores que guían su acción y su compromiso con la justicia y la dignidad humana. Desde nuestro cuarto Plan Director de Cooperación al Desarrollo, trabajamos para que en las posibilidades de nuestra aportación estos principios trasciendan nuestras fronteras y se extiendan hacia los países y comunidades con los que colaboramos, especialmente en los que están en los contextos de graves violaciones de los derechos humanos. Para este conversatorio, que está a punto de comenzar, contamos con dos invitadas excepcionales, cuyo testimonio, experiencia y conocimiento nos permitirán profundizar en la compleja realidad que abordaremos hoy. Por una parte, Tamam Abusalama, it's okay, ¿no? Yes. Nació y se crió en el campo de refugiados de Jabalia, en la Franja de Gaza. Como cuenta en redes sociales, haber vivido en la mayor prisión al aire libre del mundo y haber sobrevivido guerras sin tener los medios para que su voz fuera escuchada, le motivaron a estudiar periodismo en Turquía. Su tesis del máster en estudios sobre comunicación y medios de comunicación versó sobre la representación de las mujeres refugiadas de países del tercer mundo en los principales medios de comunicación occidentales desde una perspectiva poscolonial e interseccional. Tamam escribe periódicamente en redes sociales sobre la situación actual en la Franja de Gaza, sobre el día a día de sus familiares y amigos y sobre sus pensamientos en relación a la guerra en Gaza. Actualmente está trabajando como responsable de comunicación en el Consejo Europeo sobre Refugiados y Exiliados. Además, colabora puntualmente con medios de comunicación internacionales como Mondoways, Electronic Invitada y We Are Not Numbers. Olga Rodríguez Es periodista especializada en información internacional, Oriente Medio, derechos humanos y desplazamientos de personas refugiadas. Ha trabajado como periodista en Afganistán, Irak, Egipto, Estados Unidos, Líbano, Jordania, México, Siria, Palestina y Yemen, entre otros. Olga, como es conocida, ha demostrado y ha cubierto muchos de los conflictos más importantes de las últimas 2 décadas en Oriente Medio y en el norte de África, entre los que destacan sus trabajos sobre las revueltas árabes desde Egipto en 2011, sus crónicas desde Irak durante la invasión y ocupación en 2003 o sus reportajes desde los territorios palestinos, Afganistán o Siria. Es cofundadora del medio digital eldiario.es, así como autora de libros como El hombre mojado no teme la lluvia, Voces de Oriente Medio o Yo me muero hoy, las revueltas árabes, entre otros. Olga forma parte de la Junta Directiva de UNRWA España con labores de asesoramiento y consulta. Su voz ha sido testigo en primera línea de algunos de los conflictos más complejos del mundo. Por eso, esta semana ha sido premiada en la 19ª edición del Memorial Jan Gomis de Periodismo Solidario por su destacada trayectoria. El jurado ha destacado los análisis semanales de la periodista sobre el conflicto entre Israel y Palestina, de los que han resaltado el compromiso con un periodismo veraz y con la defensa de los derechos humanos. Queremos agradecer a nuestras invitadas de manera profunda su presencia hoy en nuestra ciudad y nos sentimos verdaderamente honrados de contar con su presencia en este espacio, que nos ayudará a comprender seguramente de una manera más veraz una realidad tan compleja como la que hoy abordamos, así como esperemos que nos invite a reflexionar y a tomar acción. Desde nuestra ciudad reafirmamos nuestro compromiso y expresamos nuestra firme solidaridad con su causa, convencidos de que solo a través del entendimiento mutuo y el compromiso colectivo, podremos avanzar hacia un mundo más justo y humano. Besterik ez, eskerrik asko, zuen adaitza eta aurrera.
Bueno, buenas tardes, es un placer estar aquí. Gracias por la presentación y sobre todo es un placer estar con Tamam, Abusalama, que es a quien creo que todas las personas que estamos aquí hemos venido a escuchar. Hablábamos ahora ambas de lo ocurrido hace unas horas, la emisión de órdenes de detención contra el primer ministro israelí y el exministro de Defensa, Yoav Gallant, por parte del Tribunal Penal Internacional. Una medida inédita, nunca había ocurrido, contra un mandatario israelí o contra un líder aliado de lo que llamamos Occidente. Y evidentemente sabemos que la correlación de fuerzas y la posibilidad de que este tipo de órdenes puedan ejecutarse y llegar a su fin es difícil. Hay 124 países que han ratificado el Tratado de Roma, el Estatuto de Roma de la Corte Penal Internacional. Hay otros muchos que no. Pero independientemente de eso, es importante, creo, subrayar la importancia de este paso inédito, como otros pasos inéditos que estamos contemplando en estos meses en los circuitos de derecho internacional, a pesar de que el genocidio en Gaza está siguiendo su curso en tiempo real. Lo estamos viendo, por primera vez estamos viendo algo de esta magnitud desde nuestros teléfonos en tiempo real. Srebrenica, Ruanda, otras barbaridades del pasado las conocimos a posteriori. Hay sectores que pretenden que lo normalicemos como un mero ruido de fondo al que nos acostumbremos y sigue pasando. Pero aún así hay mucha gente en el mundo que está tratando de elevar su voz, de actuar y de empujar en este pulso al que asistimos en todo el planeta, que es un pulso entre el derecho internacional y el escenario de más respeto mutuo entre Estados y de más justicia, o el abismo y mayores conquistas de impunidad. Por eso lo que pasa en Palestina nos preocupa, porque le pasa a la gente palestina, pero porque además hoy es la gente palestina y mañana podemos ser nosotros. Y eso es lo que está en juego en el marco internacional. Entonces yo voy a hacer una serie de preguntas a Tamam, vamos a ir conversando y la primera queríamos empezar hablando precisamente de esto. ¿Cuál es tu valoración sobre estas órdenes de arresto por parte de la Corte Penal Internacional? ¿Cómo lo interpretas y cómo lo tenemos que ver y recibir?
Thanks a lot. Can you hear me? Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot for having me first. I'm very pleased to be in Bilbao. I have always wanted to be here, and I didn't expect that it is that beautiful city, but yeah, thanks a lot for having me. So, in regards to your question, I think this decision has been is a significant step towards justice, towards liberation, towards the rights of Palestinian people. But of course, we all want to see how it's going to be implemented on the ground. I mean, there have been Israel is one of the countries that has the highest number of UN resolutions against it. More than 140 resolutions, UN resolutions have been against it since just between 2015 and 2022. And yet we have seen no implementation on the ground. But it's important that we keep hope. It's important that we try to cling to this little light of hope, because this is what we need. We need to continue the struggle. We need to continue the fight. We need to, and I know very well as a Palestinian that it can be very tiring, and the fight can be very long. And sometimes it can be mentally draining, physically draining, but it's not us who have to say this, actually. It's the people who are in Palestine, who are being mass slaughtered, mass starved. They are being deprived, tortured, denied of basic necessities, food, drinkable water, a ceiling above their head, a safe space, a safe place just to... Some people are talking, a woman once said, I miss a wall, an object to lean on. Like, people cannot find something, like they live in tents for more than 1 year and a half, and yet, and still just missing the idea of leaning onto something that is stiff, that is firm. So us, people who live here in Europe, from our privileged position, should have and should keep this hope, and should always look for it, and should use it to act for these people, because despair is not an option. Despair should not be an option here. We're not talking about we're talking about liberation. We're talking about people. We're talking about lives of people. We're not talking about numbers, as media wants to portray. We're talking about my family. We're talking about my cousins, my neighbors, my homes, my schools, my streets, my playgrounds, the clinics, the hospitals that I was at. So it's vivid places, that these places and these people were full of life, and we have to advocate for their life, that they have to continue living this life, but they have to continue living this life dignified. They have to continue it living as they should, as all human rights. And it's our responsibility to cling to this hope, to these arrest warrants against these criminals. And we have to push for further arrest warrants. We have to push for all the criminals in Europe, all the European criminals who went to Israel just during the genocide and after the genocide, after the 7th of October, to congratulate Israel and to offer unconditional, uncritical support to a colonial entity that has been known for its violations against the human rights, or its war crimes, its crimes against the humanity. It's scary that we live in a world that normalizes and these violations. Not only that, but facilitates genocide, facilitates master slaughter in the name of us, and with our own monies, our own taxes. So, yes, these arrests are very important, very significant step, but also we have to understand that Israel goes beyond these two individuals. Israel is a settler, colonial, Zionist project that has been established on the ethnic cleansing, forced displacement, disposition of the lands, of the rights, of the identity, of the national aspiration of people, of the Palestinian people. So yes, these criminals and all the complicits have to be held accountable, and we have to go until all of them are held accountable, but we also have to continue the fight and not to lose sight of the broader picture, of the bigger picture, that this project has to be dismantled.
Tú eres de Jabalia. Creo recordar que la primera vez que estuve en Palestina fue en 1994. Desde entonces hasta hoy, bueno, he vivido periodos allí, pero si no, cada vez que lo visito veo nuevo territorio ocupado en Cisjordania, en Jerusalén Este, y cómo se ha ido sofisticando de manera absolutamente perversa el régimen de apartheid y el bloqueo en Gaza. Cuéntanos un poco sobre los recuerdos de tu infancia, cómo creciste en Gaza, la vida de tu familia, el momento en el que decides irte, cómo está tu familia ahora, cómo vives todo lo que pasa en esos lugares que reconoces cuando los ves, las imágenes, cómo lo vives desde aquí.
So, yeah, you were in Palestine in 1994. I was born in 1993. So I am, we call it, I am the Oslo generation. I am one of the Oslo generation. So the Oslo generation was made to kind of create some peace. But of course, eventually it was frustrating and it failed because Israel continued building settlements and so on and so forth. So that peace process and these peace negotiations have failed. So this is what I was born into. I was born into a failing peace negotiations, and this is what everyone, all the West wanted. But I was also born in Jabalia refugee camp, as everyone knows. Jabalia refugee camp is, I will get emotional, but it's if I want to describe this place to you, but it's a very intensive place. I think no one can imagine what it is to live there, and even myself, I cannot describe how it is to live there, but I feel so much love and attachment to that place because it is the place that endured all forms of violence, of colonial violence, and Israel is systematically, because it's a symbol of resistance. It's symbol of the fight for, because it's where the first Intifada has emerged. So Israel has always systematically wanted to erase that camp, but the people were always these resilient people that are full of love, so full of love, full of life, despite it all. And I know this can sound so cliche, but they are the kindest people I've ever met in my life. But I can tell you that this place is not normal. But I myself, I didn't know that it was not normal until I left Gaza. I thought that it was just like any other place. But then I learned that, okay, it's one of the most densely populated areas in the world. There's 100,000 people living in 1 square kilometer. It's insane. I was also born to a politically active family. My dad is a former political prisoner who spent more than 13 years in the Israeli jails. He was sentenced to 27 lifetimes, sentence of lifetimes, plus some other years. And my mom was a feminist organizer and a nurse at UNRWA Clinic. So eventually my childhood and my upbringing and my personality has been shaped by the reality and the family environment I was born into. And of course, like as any Palestinian, my childhood and my life has been shaped by the political situation in Gaza. And it's mainly, for instance, one of the very first memories, I was also like, I remember, for instance, when I was 7, 8 years, how my grandmother, who was born in 1920, she's 28 years older than Israel. So my grandmother is older than the state of Israel. And I was listening, I wasn't like, she would put me to sleep and she wouldn't like narrate to me the stories of, I don't know what, like any other children. She would tell me her stories about displacement. She would tell me how they were living so beautifully and so peacefully in their village of Beit Jerja that is only 10, 15 kilometers far away from Gaza. And how she had to run in one day with her 3 children to Gaza and then thinking that it's just a matter of 1 week or 2 weeks maximum and then we go back to home. But she died without going back home. But we fight for that. We fight for her dream. Because if she didn't go back home, I will make sure that my child, who's just out there, will go back home. He will go to Beit Jerja, he will go to Jabalia, he will go to Haifa, to Jerusalem, to Jaffa. He will go to every inch of Palestine. And it's our responsibility, all of us, to act and to do our maximum to ensure that our right of return is guaranteed, is implemented. Sorry, I also like just follow the flow, but and then just moving forward onwards. One of my very first childhood memories, for instance, is I don't know if you're all familiar with Muhammad al-Durra. Muhammad al-Durra is a child. Is that scene of Muhammad al-Durra? Muhammad al-Durra is a child who was lying on his father's lap in 2000. And his father was holding himself behind a small electricity box, and suddenly the Israeli occupation army targets him, shoots him to death. And the dad starts shouting, saying, my child was killed with a bullet. So that scene, when it happened, I was with my siblings on the TV, in the front of the TV, and we were watching it all. And then my parents didn't understand what was happening, so they just came immediately and they saw us watching that scene, and they covered our eyes. They were like, oh, no, you have to shut the television off. They didn't want us to see what was happening, because of course we are all children and they don't want us to understand all of this. We're too young. But it was too late for my parents. I mean, they arrived a little bit too late. It was too late for them to make us unsee what we have already seen. And that moment, at the age of 8-year-old, I understood that Palestinians, every Palestinian, no matter their age, their gender, their ethnicity, their faith, their religion is a target. Is a target. And therefore, it's me. I say it's me, I can be a target. My brother, my father has been already a target, and he spent all his life and all his youth just running between mountains and prisons. And so, and then in 2000, moving forward, so it's 2000, this is the first Intifada happened, and then I lived through the first Intifada, and then in 2004, my cousin Jihad was murdered. It was Al-Adha Eid. It was, it's like Christmas. I was supposed like it was just a 12, 11-year-old girl that wanted just to wear her new clothes and enjoy the Eid, but then unfortunately I was confronted with the reality of seeing everyone in the family mourning, grieving, crying. And then in 2006, another cousin gets killed. It's actually, he didn't get killed. This is a very funny story. We call this, my cousin, the living martyr. Because what happened is that he was shot by the Israeli army. And then we couldn't reach his corpse because it was on the borders. So we couldn't reach his corpse. So we thought, okay, he must have been killed. So we opened a funeral ceremony, and everyone cries, and it's a funeral. It's a mourning time. And 15 days later, we received the news that there is an unidentified person lying in the intensive care unit in a Shifa hospital. And the doctor asks him, "What is your name?" And he tells him, "My name is Misha Abusalama." And then the family receives the news that he is alive. He's alive, of course. He lost all his memory, he lost his bodies and some limbs and everything. But his soul, his heart is still beating for life. And I see Misho. Misho is now displaced with 2 children in the beach refugee camp. And I see Misho as a metaphor of Palestinian, that continues to be killed slowly, systematically targeted, slowly. But yet, he continues to rise. He rises despite the agony, the anguish, the anger, the pain, the physical and the mental pain. So I don't know where we are.
Okay, I was thinking, perdón, estaba pensando cuando te escuchaba ahora en cómo hay muchos relatos periodísticos y políticos también, por supuesto, que llegan, que parece querer decirnos que todo empezó el 7 de octubre de 2023. Cuando te escuchaba recordaba, pues a principios de siglo, no sé si era el año 2000, 2001, estando en Belén, en la ciudad de Belén, cómo entraron unos tanques, soldados israelíes, pues un chavalito pequeño les tiró una piedrecita, ellos contestaron disparando, tiraron gases lacrimógenos, de la nada aparecieron mujeres palestinas con cebollas cortadas a la mitad, preocupándose por toda la gente que estábamos allí para que no nos asfixiáramos, y cómo ese día vi cómo yacía en el suelo un chaval muerto, ¿no? Y a lo largo de los años lo hemos ido viendo una y otra vez con esa anexión, ese apartheid, ese colonialismo que sigue extendiéndose. En 2022 vimos cómo el ejército israelí asesinaba a la periodista Shirin Abu Akleh. Era una buena amiga, fue asesinada en Cisjordania y su asesinato sigue impune. Por lo tanto, ocurre una y otra vez. Estamos viendo cómo hay más de 130 periodistas muertos por los ataques israelíes en Gaza. Y esta es la realidad. Cuando el secretario general de Naciones Unidas fue acusado por Israel con una serie de insultos por haber dicho que los ataques del 7 de octubre no procedían de la nada, no procedían de un vacío, él quería decir algo con ello. tú has crecido en un lugar marcado por la ocupación, marcado por el bloqueo, marcado por esa imposición y por ese aplastamiento contra la población palestina. Por lo tanto, puedes explicar muy bien que esto no empezó ayer, ni antes de ayer, ni hace 2, ni 3, ni 4 años, sino hace muchas décadas, ¿no? Nos lo has explicado a través de la historia de tu propia familia, pero supongo que cuando vivías allí y ahora que estás fuera, y supongo que estarás en contacto con gente de allí, ¿cómo ha sido ese proceso que además ha ido a peor, lejos de ir a mejor, ha ido creciendo la impunidad, ¿no?, a lo largo de los años, a través de esa política de hechos consumados israelíes, ¿no? Llego aquí, ocupo, bloqueo más, oprimo más y una vez que está hecho ya no retrocedo.
So yes, nothing has started on the 7th of October, and this is absolutely just one of another propaganda and lies that Israel has created to punish, to cover up and whitewash its crimes and its annexation of lands and its mass slaughter. Palestinians have used all tools of resistance to call for their political rights, for self-determination, for freedom from occupation, from very early on. And it has been decades of oppression, and no human being can endure that much humiliation, or should endure that much humiliation and torture and oppression. This should not be normal. So you cannot expect a person who has been oppressed, suppressed, targeted, homes stolen, his life threatened, everything was taken from him, and then you expect him to say, thank you. This is not a normal human being reaction. So of course you should expect everyone, any person with conscience, with a little bit of understanding, of compassion, of heart, of even a bit of understanding of human rights, that a person, nobody should accept oppression or should accept injustice. So everything has been, Israel has, I live in Gaza, I was born and raised in Gaza, in a refugee camp. I survived many Israeli aggressions. And I lived also through the siege imposed on Gaza for decades. And the situation, the life in Gaza and in all Palestine has never been normal. We normalized it. We normalized it because we wanted to live. We wanted to go on in life. Because otherwise we would just rot. But of course, after 7th of October, the situation has become extremely, extremely disastrous, extremely catastrophic. There is no word to describe the humanitarian situation in Gaza. And it's important to understand that the humanitarian situation in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, doesn't come out of the blue. It's a result of Israel's constant assaults on Gaza, constant military and air strikes in Gaza, and decades of oppression and occupation in Palestine. Just 2 days ago, one of my uncles, he's 80-year-old. He's my eldest uncle. He stayed in the north of Gaza. It's not because he wanted. He of course he wanted to stay at his home, but he would have wished to be able to move to a relatively safer place if it ever exists in Gaza. This uncle has served all his life as a chef of UNRWA Jabalia refugee camp, a clinic. Throughout this genocide, he was injured, he was detained. He's 80-year-old. He was detained, injured, displaced, I don't know how many, multiple times. His child, my cousin Wajdi, was killed. His niece lost his eye. Yes, 2 days ago, this uncle was taken from under the rubble after the Israeli occupation army flattened all his neighborhood, including his home, with robots. They didn't have that, it didn't end there. So he didn't have a wheelchair. There's no hospitals, no ambulance, no defense forces, nothing in the north of Gaza. Some neighbors were kind enough to take him from under the rubble and carry him on their shoulders and put him in another uncle's home. In the same attack, my cousin's husband was killed. His name is Musa. Yesterday we were talking to his child, and his name is Ibrahim. His child was telling us, my dad went to heaven. I'm sure he's in a better place than this world. And I think it's all our responsibility to make this world a better place for our children, for all of us, and for the children of Gaza. And this is just a snapshot of what is like to be living nowadays amid this genocide, enduring genocide, while accumulating anger, frustration, all through generations of Palestinians. It's my grandmother who was forcefully displaced from her home, and we continue to live this years of displacement, of just living in camps and as refugees without any rights, without any vision, any prospect to the future. So yes, it didn't start on 7th of October, and anyone who says that it started on 7th of October and who tries to blame the oppressed for resisting, for calling for their rights, is complicit and aims to maintain and spread the Israelis' propaganda machine and Israel's Hasbara.
Mucha gente en el mundo seguimos pendientes todos los días, no olvidamos, Musa no va a ser olvidado, a pesar de todos los intentos de Israel porque no se sepa lo que ocurre dentro y porque no se hable de ello. De hecho, no en vano, Gaza está cerrada a cal y canto y la prensa internacional no puede entrar dentro. Hay grandes periodistas palestinos contándonos la realidad, pero lamentablemente hay un fenómeno que atraviesa nuestro presente y que cualquier historiador o historiadora honesta del futuro tendrá que subrayar para contar nuestro presente, que es la deshumanización contra la población palestina. Y al mismo tiempo hay escenarios en el mal llamado primer mundo donde estamos viendo retrocesos en la libertad de protesta y de expresión. Hemos visto cómo hay mucha gente a la que nada de lo humano le es ajeno, que entiende la envergadura de lo que está pasando y que está movilizándose y diciendo no en mi nombre. Pero está al mismo tiempo recibiendo represión y castigo. Las acampadas estudiantiles, por ejemplo, en Estados Unidos, en Alemania, en varios países europeos. Está siendo estigmatizada la defensa de los derechos humanos y además tergiversada. Decía recientemente la relatora de Naciones Unidas para la libertad de expresión, Irene Khan, que la crisis de Gaza, cita textual, la crisis de Gaza es ya una gran crisis de la libertad de expresión y de protesta en todo el mundo que tendrá consecuencias muy graves a medio y largo plazo. ¿Cómo vives como Palestina? ¿Qué es ser hoy en día una Palestina en Europa? ¿Cómo vives como Palestina? Todos estos relatos que lamentablemente todavía están presentes en algunos espacios y en algunos sectores. ¿Has sentido la deshumanización, el racismo? Pensando si quieren hacer alguna pregunta a Tamam, ¿vale? Para que tengáis tiempo, porque luego vamos a tener un ratito. ¿Qué es ser una mujer palestina bajo la ocupación en un régimen de apartheid? ¿Cómo eso afecta a las mujeres? ¿Y cuáles son los retos y obstáculos de las mujeres palestinas para alcanzar una vida libre y digna?
So the occupation, the Israeli occupation affects Palestinian women just as it affects men, children, elderly, queer people, all people, all Palestinian people, but of course in different ways. And Palestinian women have always been a part of the struggle to liberation. They have always been freedom fighters. Even now, even at their homes, they are the one. Now, women, even now amid this genocide, if you see what women in Gaza are doing, man, even mountains cannot endure what these women are enduring. They're I have at least 3 cousins who gave birth during the genocide. And you can imagine how it is for, birth by itself. I'm just a new mother as well. And I gave birth also during the genocide in Europe, in Belgium, in one of the best and the most advanced hospitals. And yet it was a crazy, intense experience. Imagine how it is to give birth during a genocide, displaced. One of my cousin's wife, and on the second day of the Israel's military assault on Jabalia, she had an appointment in Al-Auda hospital for induced labor, an appointment for induced labor. But she couldn't go to the appointment because they had to flee. Where to flee? They had to flee to Gaza City. How to flee? There is no transportation. She's 9 months pregnant, about to give birth. She walked for almost 5 kilometers under bombardment. That's the reality of Palestinian women. Also, but it's important also to understand that the struggle of Palestinian women is not new. It has been always there. Israel has always weaponized and systematically targeted Palestinian women since very early years of occupation. Even in my dad told me once that from his experiences in the Israeli jails, he told me that once they brought the sister of a friend, a political prisoner, in the interrogation room, and it threatened him to either speak or either rape her in front of his eyes. And even now, during the genocide, the UN Women has released reliable accounts of rape of Palestinian women at the hands of Israeli soldiers. And no, it's not just individual cases. It's a systematic strategy. So the obstacle of Palestinian women is not as the West wants to portray. It's not perpetrated by men, Palestinian men, these savages, barbaric Arabs who are so obsessed about women. No. It's created and sustained by the Israeli occupation of Palestine, by Israel and its actions. And violence against women, it's like anywhere in the world. It's like in Europe, it's like in France, it's like in Italy, it's like in Spain. We have to fight it, of course. And there is violence against women everywhere by men. So it's no different in Palestine. But in Palestine, it's a little bit extra because there is occupation that uses women as a target. So yes, the obstacle for Palestinian women's rights is the occupation. And how to ensure that women, Palestinian women, have access to their rights, have a dignified life, is by ending the occupation. We cannot talk about protecting women, Palestinian women, without talking about the end of occupation. It's that clear. And any discourse that says otherwise aims to distract. But us, we have to continue to be focused on the subject, on the object, on what really matters, on ending the occupation, because it liberates all of us, women, men, children, elderly.
Y la última pregunta. Llevamos muchísimos años viendo cómo las palabras van por un lado, el bla, bla, bla va por un lado y los hechos van por otro. Yo siempre recomiendo que en todo, pero en este caso concreto, nos fijemos siempre en los hechos y no en las palabras, ¿no? Porque llevamos viendo cómo hay incluso mandatarios internacionales que llevan 13 meses diciendo que hacen todo lo posible mientras siguen enviando armamento, siguen protegiendo las políticas de Israel en Gaza, las acciones, los crímenes y vetando las resoluciones de alto el fuego en Naciones Unidas. Te voy a hacer una pregunta que creo que mucha gente se hace y que debemos hacernos todos los días, ¿no? ¿Qué se puede hacer? ¿Qué medidas hay para intentar que se cumpla el derecho internacional, que se aplique el derecho internacional a la población palestina, que se termine con la impunidad israelí y las violaciones de las resoluciones de Naciones Unidas y que se garantice los derechos humanos de la población palestina y una Palestina libre? ¿Cómo sueñas tú esa Palestina? O sea, ¿qué hacer y cómo sueñas e imaginas la Palestina del futuro?
So every action matters. The most important is that we act and we continue acting and we don't lose hope. When I arrived in Bilbao, I went to a supermarket I looked at the dates immediately and I was surprised, shocked to see that the dates come from Israel. And then on my way actually to here, I saw also Carrefour. And these things are the reasons of why the Israeli occupation continues persist in Palestine. It is us paying money to get these dates that come from Israel. And it's basically paying money to Israel to get some more weapons to kill Palestinians. It's that what we're doing when you buy. So it's our responsibility to go and talk to our local markets. We should tell them why do you can get stickers and just put it on their dates box. Boycott. You have to talk to your friends and tell them that that market says dates from Israel. Boycott it. We have also to boycott is the least minimal thing that we can do actually as individuals from here. And maybe you feel sometimes that it doesn't have any added value, but it does. And that's why Israel has criminalized it. And in many countries, they are trying to, even in Europe, they try to criminalize it because it's successful, it's working. And it worked. It worked in South Africa, apartheid South Africa. So if we all do it collectively, it can work. So start by boycotting, not only, material stuff, but also everything. At the academic level, challenge the people at the academic level, at the cultural level, military. You have to call also your governments. We saw that Spain, for instance, they said that we will not allow any arms passing by Spain, and then surprisingly we saw some ships passing by Spain transferring arms to Israel. So it's not even, it's not reflective of their words. So they say words, they're supportive of Palestine, but on the ground, what they do? They allow the passage of arms. So it's our responsibility to pressure governments, to call for arms embargo, and even passage of any arms going to Israel. We have to pressure governments to cut all ties. And civil society organizations as well, they have also, yes, we know maybe sometimes the governments fail us, and the UN and the international institutions fail us. But the civil society, even the city council, the labor unions, the youth movements, the student movements, everyone has the responsibility to pressure their governments, to mobilize and pressure their governments to make sure that these criminals and these complicit are held accountable, and their actions are being revealed, and to make sure that they are everything, that their crimes are that their complicity in killing our people is clear to everyone. So boycott, and enter into uncomfortable discussions with your friends, with your family. I know that sometimes it's risky, and we might lose people. But we're not talking about a banana, we're not discussing about a banana on a pizza. We're discussing about rights. I mean, we should not have we should not be debating about whether you agree or disagree on genocide, on mass slaughtering of people. It's not, it's not if you like pizza or not. No. Enter these uncomfortable discussions, and it challenges people's bias. It challenges people's stereotypes, bias and brainwashing. It's very important. And the most important thing is not to lose hope. Despair is not an option. Despair is not an option for any person with conscience, with any person calling for human rights. So please, don't forget us. Don't leave Palestinians alone. Don't let us down. Because the decline, what is happening in Palestine will one day or might happen in Europe, and you won't be, and you should not be left out alone. So, and remember that Palestine is a liberation cause, and it's an intersectional cause. It will liberate all of us. So please, continue acting for my family, for my friends, for my right to return to Jabalia, and I'm sure if you continue working, we will have the next seminar, the next webinar will be in our home, with all of you in our home.
Inshallah.
It's bombs, but we will rebuild it all together. I promise.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Bueno, gracias, Tamam, por tus palabras.
Thank you.
lo bien que hablas, cómo lo dices, cómo nos transmites. Gracias, de verdad. Nos hemos quedado con la Palestina del futuro, de cómo te la imaginas, ¿no? Aquí siempre nos hablan los dos estados, cuando hay mucha gente palestina que se imagina, bueno, pues una tierra libre donde todo el mundo pueda vivir en igualdad, pero bueno, luego nos hablas de ello. Voy a dar paso ya a las preguntas del público. A ver, tenemos sí, tenemos un ratito, no mucho, pero entonces si alguien levanta la mano, no hay preguntas. A ver, podemos hacer una ronda, si alguien más se anima después de él, y hacemos 2 o 3.
Hola, muchas gracias. Perdón, muchas gracias. La conversación ha sido súper interesante. Tengo unas sensaciones como de pena, rabia, enfado, una mezcla muy extraña. Yo quería preguntar un poco si además de estas acciones del boicot, de qué podemos hacer nosotros los vecinos al final, dentro del tema de la solidaridad, si al final la solidaridad, es decir, las manifestaciones o lo que sea, si os llegan a vosotras, al pueblo palestino. Al final aquí hemos crecido siempre con la defensa, ¿no?, y el apoyo al pueblo palestino, pero yo quiero saber si llega esa solidaridad allá, si lo recibís, cómo y además del boicot, ¿qué más podemos seguir haciendo? Gracias.
¿Hay alguna pregunta más o va contestando Tamam a esto? Bueno, pues you can answer.
Okay. But yeah, we can come back.
Okay.
Hola, bueno, me gusta mucho el punto de vista desde cómo has orientado desde la experiencia personal y que nos ha emocionado me ha emocionado mucho. Hace muchos años estuvieron aquí un grupo de mujeres israelíes y hablaban del trabajo que estaban haciendo en Israel contra la ocupación en los territorios palestinos. Entonces, quería saber si ahora tenéis, lo estáis sintiendo, el trabajo de esas mujeres, si tenéis algún contacto. Bueno, pues esa es mi pregunta.
So yeah, on the first question, thanks a lot. So when my family was successfully evacuated to Spain, they are now in Barcelona. So we managed to get them out during the genocide. And when they were there, my dad was always asking me, is there anything happening? Because they didn't have, there's no TV, there's no internet, there's no any communication. So he was always asking me, is there protest? Is people are moving? He wanted any spark of hope to just give him a little bit of a strength, to give him a little bit of, and I was whenever I would tell him, people, today in Brussels, I don't know how many thousand, and especially in the Basque. The Basque is very well known for its historical demonstration with Palestine, and we've always been very thankful and grateful. So it does reach. It does reach. And sometimes it doesn't feel so concrete, but it's solidarity and solidarity actions, it's a built-up. So it's stone above stone above stone, and and that's how we get closer to the desired objective. So we should not lose hope in the middle. It's just we have to continue be focused. We just need to continue to be focused and not lose sight of what really matters. And on actions, I always say that I leave what you can do for Palestine to your imagination, to your brave souls. There are many, many ideas, whether direct, indirect, that any group, any person can take. Every little action does matter. Just do, just act, and think, imagine, travel, fly. And on the other question, about Israeli women. This is a very important and a harder question. Okay. I need to put my words together. You know, it's, as a Palestinian, a refugee, a Palestinian refugee who was born in a refugee camp as a third generation Palestinians. It's hard, truly, and from the depth of my heart, it's hard to think that a person who still lives in my home while I am being displaced truly cares about my rights. I should be, this person is not from there, is not indigenous to the land. This person must have come from Poland, Russia, Argentina, Morocco, Iraq, I don't know. I am the person who should be in Palestine. And that being said, I think it's very important that Israelis understand that they are actually victim of the Zionist settler colonial regime. And by doing so, they will liberate themselves and liberate Palestinians. That's the most politically correct answer I can give to you.
Thank you. ¿Alguna pregunta más? Tenemos como 5 minutitos. Podemos aprovechar para alguna duda que se os haya quedado.
Bueno, muchas gracias a las dos, es que ricasco. No es una pregunta, es solo un comentario. Cuando oigo respecto a Gaza lo de la deshumanización de los palestinos y las palestinas y la normalización, ¿no? Siempre encuentro mucho paralelismo con las personas, con lo que también estamos haciendo desde Europa y desde Occidente respecto a las personas emigrantes que vienen del sur, respecto a todas las muertes, a las pateras, a los cayucos desaparecidos, a las noticias que nos llegan ahora mismo desde Canarias, a los 4.000 muertos, no sé. Encuentro muchas semejanzas. Antes no entendía lo de la deshumanización, ¿no? Pero bueno, encuentro mucho paralelismo entre los dos. Y casi a favor de Tamam hay un poco de esperanza. La semana pasada estuve escuchando también en Bilbao a unos abogados palestinos y que estuvieron en una jornada que hubo sobre derecho y abogacía y Gaza, y es curioso que el mensaje más optimista y más esperanzador es el de las personas gazatíes, ¿no? No se puede perder la esperanza. No se puede. Hay que seguir adelante, ¿no? Solo esas dos cosas quería decir.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, si no hay más preguntas... Vale. ¿Quieres decir algo al respecto? ¿O do you want to say something related to that?
Just thank you for the City Council for having and inviting me. It's actually started from there. I'm very grateful that city councils are doing their job seriously, and they are using their position to leverage and give space for the Palestinian voices and experience and expertise. And I urge all of you to continue advocating for Palestine, to continue calling for our freedom, for the liberation of every oppressed minority, including minors, migrants, and people on the move. Let's all be kind to each other, and don't lose hope. Next webinar will be in our home in Gaza, over a maqluba, inshallah.
Inshallah. Decía, hace poco tuve la fortuna de almorzar con Angela Davis y decía, hablábamos de Palestina y con sus 83, 84 años, decía que transmitir esperanza tiene que ser también una disciplina en momentos como estos, en los que hay mucho que hacer precisamente porque estamos viviendo esa deshumanización normalizada de la que hablabas, en una Europa que externaliza fronteras para que la gente muera lejos de nuestros territorios y de nuestras conciencias, y en la que eso a lo que llamamos la otredad, los otros, está siendo arrinconada y deshumanizada. En Palestina es la gente palestina, en Europa pues también es la gente inmigrante, en nuestros barrios es la gente que no llega a fin de mes y que se asume que tiene que tener pues una vida que también va a estar condenada a la exclusión social. Eso está ocurriendo en muchos lugares de una manera normalizada. Vivimos esos tiempos. Eso que Hannah Arendt llamó la banalidad del mal está también aquí en tiempo presente. Cuando preguntabas antes por esas mujeres israelíes, recordaba una conversación que tuve el otro día con Ilian Pape, un historiador israelí que ahora vive en Londres, y con otras personas israelíes que se han ido en los últimos años porque no pueden o porque consideran que no pueden participar de esa ocupación y de ese colonialismo. Hay algunas personas, son muy pocas las que viven en Israel, que en estos momentos están defendiendo el fin del apartheid, de la ocupación ilegal. Conozco a una de ellas, Nurit Peled, que procede de una familia judía que lleva viviendo siglos allí. Nurit, el 7 de octubre de 2023, en un chat privado de profesores universitarios, escribió, citando a Fanon y a Sartre: cuando la bota de hierro del opresor o del ocupante lleva décadas aplastando al oprimido, al ocupado, si éste una mañana puede abrir una rendija a un ojo, ¿qué mirada esperas ver? Y ella añadió: hemos visto esa mirada. En esos días el ministro de Educación israelí salía por la tele diciendo: quiero nombres, 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 porque el macartismo y la represión contra todas aquellas voces que se salen del discurso oficial, en esta ocasión también se amplió a algunas voces judías israelíes, que son una minoría, que apenas tienen representación más que con 2 o 3 parlamentarios, pero que están allí. Y entonces a Nurit Peled alguien se chivó y fue denunciada y bueno, pues el rector de su universidad la suspendió temporalmente como profesora. Ella es buena amiga de un abogado judío estadounidense que escribió un artículo en el New York Times contando todo esto. Esta es la realidad en estos momentos. Y por eso es tan importante usar las palabras en todo el mundo, para poder subrayar esta realidad y para poder cambiarla. Porque todas las personas que estamos aquí tenemos la capacidad de usar las palabras. Y decía un escritor español, portugués, pero que vivió mucho en España, premio Nobel, José Saramago, que somos las palabras que usamos. Y no nos podemos olvidar de eso en estos tiempos en los que quieren arrebatarnos también las palabras. No solo lejos, también aquí están pasando cosas y tenemos que ser muy conscientes. Es muy importante que hayamos tenido hoy aquí las palabras de Tamam. Son muy importantes sus palabras. Se puede hacer mucho más. Las herramientas en el campo del derecho internacional están ahí. Siempre ha sido de doble rasero, siempre ha sido débil, pero hay vías que aún no se han explorado. Una de ellas que está planteando la relatora de Naciones Unidas, Francesca Albanese, una y otra vez es suspender temporalmente a Israel como integrante de la Asamblea General de Naciones Unidas, como se hizo con la Sudáfrica del apartheid, hasta que deje de violar el derecho internacional y cometer crímenes de guerra, crímenes de lesa humanidad y este genocidio en curso que estamos viendo. Hay muchas y no debemos subestimarlas. Y cuando ocurren estos pasos pequeños como el de ayer, debemos contarlos y debemos ser conscientes de la importancia de que ocurran, porque lo otro es la ley del más fuerte, la ley de la selva, donde perdemos todos, como muy bien ha explicado Tamam. Así que gracias por estar aquí, gracias por organizarlo, gracias por escuchar y un aplauso muy grande para ti, Tamam.
Thank you.